Good evening, everyone. Before I get going, I'll ask everyone to please silence cell phones and other electronic devices. And I'll call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. by recognizing the traditional keepers of this land and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation with a formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the Municipality of Brighton is located on the Mississauga-Anishinaabe territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississauga. The Council of the Municipality of Brighton respectfully acknowledges that the Mississauga Nations are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. And I will note that Councillor Butwell has sent regrets, but may join us by Zoom if she's able. I have a motion to amend the agenda moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Fredis. The council amend the April 3rd, 2023 council closed session to add a discussion pursuant to the Ontario Municipal Act, RSO 2001 is amended, subsection 239(2)E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before an administrative tribunal affecting the municipality or local board, specific to legal correspondence received. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council approve the April 3rd, 2023 council agenda as presented, as amended, pardon me. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Members of council, do you have any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof. And there are none noted. Any announcements this evening? Again, none noted. Bringing us to the adoption of the minutes moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council adopt the March 27th, 2023 council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. We have no statutory public meeting this evening, which brings us to presentations. Council will hear one presentation this evening. Presenters have 15 minutes to provide council with their information. It is noted that language, content, and conduct must remain respectful at all times. Council will be provided with an opportunity to ask questions of clarification from the presentation representative based on the information that they have presented. Council is reminded that this is not an opportunity to engage in debate with the presenter nor advance a public policy position. Presenters are reminded that council does not make decisions during the presentation portion of this evening's meeting. Our presentation comes from Tracey McQueen, Galloway and Associates regarding our Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Ms. McQueen? There she is. Tracey, I see that you've unmuted yourself, but we can't hear you, just in case you're talking and you think we can.
There I am. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Good evening.
Good. I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
All right. So thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's great to be with you again to share the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We're also sharing the updated implementation plan and the resourcing that is required with that. And sorry, I think the screen's going faster than me.
If it is, we can't see it. Tracy, if you could try sharing it again, maybe.
It's my understanding when I came on that it was already being shared by your end.
We can share it, but that's not what's happening at the moment. Would you like us to share it from this end?
No, I just saw it that it said that Brighton was sharing the screen, so I'm happy to share it.
Go ahead. There we go.
And are you seeing that now?
We can see your background of your computer, yes.
Good thing it's not anything too embarrassing then, huh?
Well, if it was, it wouldn't be the first Zoom meeting with that to happen, would it?
It's I'm terribly sorry.
Okay, we saw it pop up there for a second. Oh. Are you ready? We're ready to share it here. Our deputy clerk. Oh, there you go. Is that you or her? Okay. Okay, that's you, Tracy. We've got you and we can see it on Zoom.
Perfect. So tonight, we're bringing forward the draft Parks and Recreation Master Plan for council consideration. As you're aware, Jennifer and I also joined you in February's council meeting, where we did a presentation on, why a recreation master plan is important, what's in a recreation master plan, and we outlined the process to date, as well as where we were moving forward at that time. In March, it was sort of decided by all parties that there was enough engagement that was completed and that we could move forward with the implementation plan. So that's where we are tonight. And if we could just share sort of the review of the draft master plan and how it is all set up. There's 8 categories: the indoor facilities, the outdoor facilities, programs and activities, as well as parks planning, trails and cycling, policy, service planning and evaluation, as well as financial. That's how the whole master plan is set up, with recommendations under each of those categories. We also shared in February the survey results. We had great response with the online survey, and we asked them what they used, how they were satisfied, what activities they enjoyed doing, and a range of that. And that's also all included in the Parks Master Plan in the appendix. We also, asked them questions on what they were the most satisfied with, what were the top amenities that they used, and what were their viewpoints on the priorities for future investments, as well as the priorities on the MERC or the community center. So that's where we are. That's our journey so far, and this is where we are today. So we're sharing with you in today's council's package the appendix for the recommendations for the future MERC facility. We've also included the costing and implementation schedule for the master plan. And as we're here tonight to present that for your consideration. The implementation plan is definitely very important as an important feature of the master plan. There's no doubt about it. A master plan is a guiding document, and it requires a lot of references, resourcing, and review throughout its term. It also provides the staff with short, medium, and long-term actions, and that will require the staff, leadership, as well as council support over time. The implementation also indicates the budget impact that it will have when those items come to council for their support. So with that being said, that's all we wanted to do. We know you have all the documentation in your hands and in your package. We wanted to make sure that the appendix for the MERC and the next steps were illustrated in the master plan. There's over 20 recommendations on how to move the MERC forward, so it could be ready for the community in 2033. We recognize that some of the recommendations are woven within the master plan, but it was very important for us to pull them out. At this time, I just wanted to be quick, Mayor and Council, and really thank everyone for being part of the process. Over 600 people were engaged through online surveys, interviews, focus groups, and workshops. And more importantly, thank the staff and council, both previous and the current council, who participated in the plan, with special mentions going to Jim Miller, Paul Walsh, the Recreation Committee for their leadership and support, and as we said already, Brighton's Council for their support on the master plan. So we wanted to keep our presentation really short so we could have 10 minutes left for any questions that we could answer for you or give you any answers. And that concludes the presentation. So I am going to stop share since I'm the one sharing right now, and Jennifer can lead the Q&A with our support if there is any questions.
Thank you, Tracey. I'll open the floor to members of council for questions of clarification. And I'm not seeing any. So thank you very much.
No, we thank you.
Well, we know how much work goes into getting us here to these primary plans and allowing the community to see sort of next steps or visions for next steps, and we'll see what council wants to do as we move this forward. So thank you very much for this evening, but for all the work you've done in the background over the course of the last year or so.
Thank you.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Wright, that the council receives a presentation from Tracey McQueen of McQueen Galloway Associates for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Are you aware of any citizens' comments this evening? Thank you. Brings us to staff reports. Our first report is on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan from McQueen Galloway Associates. Mr. Miller, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight, sir?
Not at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon. The council receives a staff report from the Director of Parks and Recreation dated April 3rd, 2023 regarding the Parks and Recreation Master Plan as prepared by McQueen Galloway and Associates, and that the implementation actions contained within the master plan be considered by council in future capital and operating budgets. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to our next report, Municipality of Brighton Health and Safety Annual Endorsement. Mr. Miller, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, not this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council receives the report from the Director of Parks and Recreation and approves the 2023 Workplace Health and Safety Policy Statements and Responsibilities as attached. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next report is the Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board Memorandum of Understanding and Municipal Accommodation Tax Agreement. Mr. Hagerman, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight, sir?
No, I do not.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council receive the staff report dated April 3rd, 2023 regarding partnership agreements with the Bay of Quinte Marketing Board. And the council authorized the mayor and the clerk to sign the attached two agreements, Memorandum of Understanding Service Agreement and the Municipal Accommodations Tax Agreement, which outlines the Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board as the destination management organization in partnership with the MAT funds. Is there any discussion? Councillor Fredis.
To the chair, thank you. I just wanted to clarify for my fellow councillors that I've talked to Mr. Hagerman and Mr. Stevenson and Mr. Walsh. And earlier, the Bay of Quinte Marketing had agreed to cost share software service solution. And that is in fact covered under Article 1.1B of the agreement. Am I correct in that, Mr. Hagerman?
Yes.
Okay. The only other consideration, I think, is that the agreement with Bay of Quinte Marketing stipulates a quarterly remittance of their portion of that tax. To the best of my recollection, our own bylaw talks about a 6-month period for payment. And I would like to recommend that we amend our bylaw so that we collect on a quarterly basis. So we keep the cash flow kind of consistent with our payout. If we could have a look at that, I'd be appreciated.
Would that be finance that would take care of that?
Through your worship, I instead of maybe putting the director of finance on the spot at this time, maybe I'll have a discussion with her in the near future about that possibility.
Thank you, Mr. Hagerman. And would you advise members of council by way of email as to the response that through that discussion?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Members of council, all those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. That brings us to our 2022 annual compliance and summary report on the Municipality of Brighton's drinking water system. Mr. Whiteman.
I have no comment, nothing to add.
You didn't even get me a chance to ask.
Okay, sorry.
I was waiting to see your face. With that, I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Fredis. The council received the staff information report dated April 3rd, 2023, regarding the 2022 annual compliance and summary report on the Municipality of Brighton's drinking water system. Is there any discussion? Councillor Fredis.
To the chair, thank you. As my colleagues know, we all went through a safe drinking water training session a little while back, and there are a number of questions that we are obligated to ask. So if you will indulge me and allow me to ask them on our behalf. For that training session, one of the questions we're required to ask is, are all of our operators appropriately certified for this Class 3 facility? Additionally, I gathered that we test daily. An analysis is done by an outside agency, and the agency is not identified, but can we safely assume that they are accredited? And are you able to identify who that is?
Mr. Whiteman.
I am going to defer to Mark Alexander, who's our water operator.
Mr. Alexander, if you will.
To answer your first question, yes, we are both class 3 operators. On the second question, we do sample daily chlorine and turbidity. And our accredited labs that we sample for weekly is SGS Canada and Caduceus in Kingston.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Councillor Fredis.
Thank you to the chair. I have a few more questions. On page 8 and 9, it indicates that various tests are done and a number of them are dated 2020 and some dated 2022. Now, I do note a footnote that says this testing is required every 36 months. Can I safely assume that those dated 2020 will be updated this year in compliance with that regulation?
You are correct.
Thank you. On page 12, it states that on July 7th, 2022, the MEC gave Brighton a 99.21% compliance rating. They gave you some nasty little small deduction over a simple administrative thing. May I, on my behalf, and perhaps on behalf of the residents of Brighton, applaud you guys for your fine work in providing us with safe drinking water. Thank you. And my last point in the water section, if I may, to the chair, the MECP also recommended on that report, I believe on the same page, that the municipality obtain and review the annual Brighton landfill report and determine if they pose any threats or impacts to the Brighton water supply. And I wonder, have you had a chance to receive the report and analyze it? Or have you requested a copy, and will you be doing that analysis?
The report actually goes to our hydrogeologist, which is Bruce Heitkamp from GeoCamp. He looks it over. He puts in his annual report to us and the ministry all of his findings, and he has found that there is nothing that is pertaining to us as of the landfill so far.
And just by way of information, that landfill report comes out about mid-year every year. So the 23 one should be out around June.
And his fail-safe report was just given to us a couple weeks ago, and it's all in there.
Based on the 2022
Yes.
data. Yeah. Anything further, Councillor Fredis? Any other members of council? Thank you, Mr. Alexander. We appreciate your attendance here this evening. Mark, could you just push the purple button in front of you there? Thank you. Appreciate that. Anything further from members of council? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next report is with regard to the procedural bylaw and policy review. Madam Clerk, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not at this time.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon. The council received the staff report regarding procedural bylaw and policy review for information. Is there any discussion? Councillor Fredis.
To the chair, thank you. I just wanted to ask, earlier on, I shared with council and I believe with the clerk's office what Quinte West had done in terms of the timing of their council meetings, both changing the day and the time. And my question was, is this part of this review that you will be undertaking?
Madam Clerk.
Yeah, so it will be part of the review. I'll collect all comments from all council members and the public, and then I'll put a report together based on that. And then I'm hoping that we can put like a little review team with staff together to come up with a new procedural bylaw. Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you. Anything further from members of council? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. That brings us to the 2022 Wastewater Pollution Control Plant and Lift Station Annual Report. Mr. Whiteman, Director Whiteman, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight, sir?
No, I do not.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council received the staff report dated April 3rd, 2023 regarding the 2022 Wastewater Pollution Control Plant and Lift Station Annual Report as information. Sir, are there any questions? Councillor Fredis.
To the chair, thank you. In reading the report, the summary refers to an MBBR system and it stipulates that it was rejected by a previous council. due, as I understand it, to cost and its inability to control tan or ammonia. Am I correct in interpreting this as simply a historical reference and not an advocacy for this type of system?
Director Whitman?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to have Adam Wolverin provide some update on that.
Mr. Wolverin?
Thank you. Yes, this is just historical data that was referenced in the report. However, we are still abiding by the ECA that was issued for that process.
Thank you. Anything further from members of council? Go ahead, Councillor Fredis.
To the chair, thank you. I do have a couple of more questions, if you'll indulge me. On reviewing the tan or ammonia numbers on page 7, I know that our exceedances all occurred prior to the desludging operation that occurred in August. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct. However, typically in the spring and early summer months, we do struggle with our tan exceedances.
Okay. I also noted on page 19 that it indicates that we paid $500,000 to GFL to remove 580 metric tons of sludge, or about $900 per metric ton. Now, I did a simple scan of the internet, and it's certainly not scientific or educated in any way, but they indicate a number more in the order of $350 per metric ton. So I guess my question is, to the best of my knowledge, GFL is the only one local. Are we being kind of victimized because of sole sourcing? And it's impractical to bring someone in from outside? Or are there really alternative suppliers that we might be able to look to help lower that cost?
That could be a possibility. From my understanding, it was a tender process and GFL were the successful candidates in being awarded the tender. I'm not privy on a whole lot of information on that process.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, so
Not a problem.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
That was through you, Mr. Chair. That is my understanding too. There was a tender process, and GFL was the successful contractor.
Mr. Whitman, would you be able to find the report that came to council at that time and share it with members of this current council, please?
Yes.
Thank you. That by email is fine.
Okay.
Anything further, Councillor Fredis?
yes, to the chair, one final question. Also on page 19, it indicates that GSS Engineering had proposed new aeration, new clarifiers with screening and sludge return capability and final sludge management. I guess in light of the vast improvement in our TAN numbers as a result of the sludge removal this past August, should we look forward to or expect that some sort of capital improvements will need to be made going forward to finally get TAN under control by implementing some sort of sludge management control capture processes?
Yeah, that's safe to speculate. We're currently, as a municipality, have issued an RFP for a design on a more conventional type plan that would incorporate those components into the plant and hopefully control the variables to help more effectively treat our TAN.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions from members of council? Thank you, Mr. Wolver. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to the council follow-up list. With a motion moved, actually, I'll just open the floor to questions from members of council before I read the motion. Are there any questions with regard to the council follow-up list? Council Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 6, meeting with affected stakeholders regarding the vandalism over the last few years. I'm wondering if staff has reached out at all with community policing and our local police services or OPP to see if we can put some kind of plan in place.
I see that's assigned to Mr. Castleman, who isn't here this evening. Mr. Miller or Mr. Walsh, do you have any comment on this?
We've been reporting every time there's been vandalism, we've reported it to the OPP. There have been some cases where we've been able to capture it on camera. That it has been taking place. We're still awaiting our new camera system to be fully activated over at King Edward Park. Other than that, I haven't much else.
Councillor Rowley?
So we're kind of getting it under control a little bit then. As far as what we can do, right?
Yeah, we're doing everything we can.
Right.
Unfortunately, can happen at any time, mostly overnight. But yeah. we're best
Thank
we
you.
can.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Wheeldon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I actually have two questions. One is just a quick follow-up regarding speed on Goodrich Road. We were going to put in a black cat there, I understand. Just wanted clarification on if that's happened first. And then jump to number 12 on the list.
So let's get an answer to that. Director Walsh?
Our bylaw enforcement officer is the person who usually puts out the black cats and collects the data. There is some training and knowledge in how to work that device. So I'll have to circle back to Alan and the bylaw enforcement officer to see what roads he last put that on and what the status of the data is. But Goodrich Road doesn't ring a bell for anything recently installed.
It would have been probably a good month and a half ago by the looks of the date. Mr. Whiteman, are you aware?
Yes, there was a black cat that was put out by Alan. I don't want to contradict Paul, but I know that he did do that. There is some speeding, so we just want to analyze it a bit more and follow it up as to what direction we should possibly take, which would also make possibly part of the overall traffic study that we are intending to do as well, just to get some sort of feedback and input from those that are a little bit more knowledgeable than ourselves.
Thank you, Director. Madam Clerk?
I was contacted by the OPP as well, and they were going out there and doing some speed traps along that stretch as well.
Very well. Thank you. Appreciate that. Your next question?
My next question is in regard to number 12, regarding accessibility standards for new subdivisions and municipal developments. Has anything happened on that, Director Walsh?
Not to date. We're going to have our public engagement guidelines and procedures set up. And so the accessibility committee was going to be put on that list of consultations once those procedures were brought forward. As you can expect, maybe some other advisory committees might also be included in that circulation list, et cetera. But yeah, they are top priority.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Councillor Wright?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just had a question about the follow-up list itself. I'm just noticing that there's quite a few that are without comment. They say active. Is there any chance that this is going to be updated with comments so that when the list is dropped in front of us, we kind of know what's happening in the moment?
I think it's difficult for one person to answer that, but I think the message is clear that what we would like to see are, progress details in the comment section. And if we can disseminate that information to the staff responsible on this list, is that a fair comment?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Deputy Mayor?
I appreciate the,
Yep.
I appreciate the questions that were exactly what we're looking for. And I'm glad this has been downsized to make it a little bit more focused. And I was going to mention about the comments too. We wouldn't be asking a lot of questions if a little more detail was there. So keep it simple, but good work.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Motion before me is moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council receive the council follow-up list as information. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. Brings us, oh, sorry, we have no notices of motion or motions on tonight's agenda. There's nothing listed under unfinished business. Brings us to bylaws. Our first bylaw is to constitute and appoint a committee of adjustment. It's moved by Councillor Wielden, second by Councillor Wright. The council gives a bylaw. It's first, second, and third reading. And finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to constitute and appoint a committee of adjustment for the period of January 1st, 2023 to November 15th, 2026. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. Next bylaw is an amendment to bylaw 010-2023, Director in Charge. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Fredis. The council gives a bylaw. It's first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to amend bylaw 010-2023 to appoint a director in charge in the absence of the chief administrative officer to extend the period of time by 1 month. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next is a bylaw to adopt the 2023 estimates for general purposes. This is the municipal budget, everybody. It's moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Wielden. That council gives a bylaw. It's first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to adopt the estimates for general purposes for the corporation of the Municipality of Brighton for the year of 2023. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
You did say me, right?
I did.
I'm sorry. So we've had a couple of requests that aren't in the budget. Namely, I want to speak about Smithfield Public School. Is there opportunity once we hear from them again? And I'm guessing the school board as well to make sure that we have a memorandum of understanding with them to then still allow some more dollars in the budget. If that were to happen, how would that affect the taxes going forward, the tax rate going forward?
So it would affect next year's tax rate. If we were to add something to the budget, it would be unlikely, although not impossible, for council to reopen the budget, given that
Correct.
we would have to start all over again, the process of public engagement and, you know, all that process we do. So likely, I think, and I'd look to Director Whitfield to correct me if I'm wrong, but likely we would take monies from reserves and then make the decision for the 2024 budget as to whether we would repay those reserves through the tax support portion, or whether we would simply use those monies out of reserves.
Okay. I have one other question. For our Director of Parks and Rec, I think. I know we have allotted a significant amount of money in the tornado task force for in the budget for the tornado task force, specifically wanting to speak around the fountain. I'm not sure Jim has an RFP or whatever gone out yet for that to see if those kind of things would fall into place, if those dollars are we in the scope, or is there opportunity to maybe change that yet? I know council has approved fixing the fountain.
Director Miller.
We did get the material out of the fountain. Anybody that wants to go there and have a look, it's probably about 4 feet down and it's pretty empty. There's a couple of cinder blocks, I believe, that's covering the intake for the water. We will be removing that hopefully at the end of this week to have a look. Now, at the last task force meeting, I think it was pretty much decided, or at least I got that feeling, that we should look and see what's in first before we do anything as far as putting an RFP or any other pricing to decide whether we are going to be doing that.
So that all of that would come back to the task force, assuming that information was available while this task force is still running.
That's my plan, was to take a report to the next task force meeting, basically going over what we're facing or what we're faced with and go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
One question
Go ahead.
regarding that as well, because of where the bell is situated. do we have money in there to kind of refurbish the bell, like to fix it up if there's issues with that? Because we'll
Yeah,
have to
we're-
take that off, right?
Yeah, we're actually looking at taking that off this week. To get it refurbished one way or the other. It's going to be refurbished. There'll also be a plaque that'll be refurbished, or if we can't, we'll put a new one on. It's just a question of the fountain.
Okay.
We still have to do all the brickwork, and the top cap is going to have to be replaced.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions with regard to the bylaw? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. We have no reports of advisory committees of council, reports and minutes of council reports. We have no reports or minutes of statutory committees, boards, or external agencies, which brings us to correspondence, direction items, endorsements, communications, and petitions. First piece of correspondence comes from Brighton Garden Club, and it's moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council supports the request from the Brighton Garden Club for permission to plant the Brighton flower, wild columbine in the Memorial Park, and to post signs at King Edward Community Center and at 35 Alice Street Municipal Office to promote the Brighton flower. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Community Living Ontario is inviting the municipality to shine a light to raise awareness and celebrate May as Community Living Month. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council support the Community Living Ontario's request to light up a municipal building exterior in blue and green on May 1st, in support of Community Living Movement. Is there any discussion? And Mr. Hagerman, will you please communicate the purpose and reason why the community center might be lit up in blue and green through your communications team?
We will.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. From the Association of Ontario Roads Supervisors. Motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council support the request from the Association of Ontario Roads Supervisors regarding the announcement of a proposed fee by Enbridge Gas. Whereas Enbridge recently made an announcement of their intention to begin charging third-party contractors and other utilities $200 for utility locates where a field locate is required. And whereas third-party contractors include Ontario municipalities, and whereas these locate requests are only required as Ontario municipalities have allowed utilities to use municipal rights of way at no charge to the utilities, and whereas this announcement of new downloaded costs will negatively impact the budgets of Ontario municipalities, which are already burdened, and whereas if Enbridge is successful in implementing this new charge, a precedent is set for other utility companies to also begin charging for locates. Therefore, be it resolved that the municipality of Brighton strongly opposes these utility locate costs being downloaded to Ontario municipalities by Enbridge Gas or other utilities. That the province of Ontario's Ministry of Public and Business Service Delivery make it clear that these costs must be borne by the utilities themselves, and that this decision be forwarded to the Minister of Public and Business Service Delivery, Khalid Rashid, Minister of Infrastructure, Kinga Surma, Minister of Energy, Todd Smith, Premier Doug Ford, David Puccini, MPP, and the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And a proclamation request for International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. It's moved by Councillor Wheeldon and seconded by Councillor Wright. The council support the proclamation request to proclaim May 17th, 2022 as International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, and to raise a flag at a cost of $15. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Counselor Wheeldon, Counselor Wright, I'm changing the date to 2023. Is that okay? Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And from the town of Coburg, request to support the right of passage along Ontario Great Lakes shoreline. It's moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. The council support the town of Coburg resolution regarding right of passage along Ontario Great Lakes shorelines. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. We have no FYI correspondence, which brings us to question period. Is there anyone in the gallery that has a question with regard to anything on tonight's agenda? So at 7:15, we'll take a 10-minute recess before proceeding into closed session.